Okay, so let's get started. My name is Ravi Kumar, and about my experience, I have 13 years of experience in IT industry, where I do consulting, implementing, and administration of Microsoft and VMware product. Okay, in cloud services, I take care of Azure Active Directory, which is now called Entra ID, Azure Administration and Migration, means Entra Administration and Migration. And also, I take care of Office 365 implementation and migration to Office 365 services. And in virtualization, I take care of VMware and Microsoft Hyper-V. And also in Microsoft services, I take care of Windows Server administration, Active Directory administration, and Exchange services. Right. So this is my overall experience. And thank you so much for your time for attending to today's demo session, which is AZ104, which is Azure Administration. All right. So if I'm going fast, if you have any doubt, any questions, so you can stop me anytime and you can ask me. Okay. All right. So earlier this course and the certification code was AZ103, and 2 years back it has been changed to AZ104. Okay. And when you talk about the learning path in Microsoft Cloud Services, right? So there are many, and this is also pretty old slide. I need to update it, but still, the overall the learning path architecture is same. Okay, let's try to understand like what all the learning paths are, what is the certification, or what's your career path in Microsoft Cloud Services. All right. So if at all if you're getting started, right? So wherein you will be starting with the fundamentals, right? So AZ900, which is a Azure Fundamentals course content, right? So that is where you will be starting it up. So which talks completely about the introduction to Microsoft Cloud Services and what are the services and how that will be used. So it's completely a kind of theory part where you'll be understanding from the bottom. So there are different verticals in Microsoft Azure, which is now called as a Microsoft Entra, which got recently changed from Azure to Entra. Okay, so AZ900 is a optional in the sense this certification is optional. Without this certification also, you can start doing the next level certification, right? But still, we will be going through the we will be covering a bit on the fundamentals in the sense like we'll start introducing with the services with that the fundamentals will be covered in our training session. Okay, so there are majorly two path. One is the administration path and other one is the DevOps or the developing solution means developing path. Okay, so let's take example. Now you are interested to learn on administration or the infrastructure management, right? Or you are from a administration background and wherein you want to start your career as a Azure administrator, then your learning path will be AZ 104 is the course which you need to learn, where the content will be covering completely on administering the services in the Microsoft Cloud or in the Azure services or intra services. If at all, if you are interested in developing or coding, right, and you want to start your career as a developer in Microsoft Cloud, then you can choose the path 204. Means 204 AZ204, which talks about the developing solution in or developing solution for Microsoft Cloud or Microsoft Entra. Okay, these are the two different paths where which one you want to choose, you can choose it. And again, there are still more bifurcation where you want to learn core Microsoft networking, right? So as a infra admin, you want to learn on a Microsoft networking. There's a separate course code for that. And still there are different code or different content for different verticals. All right. So in this entire course, wherein we'll be learning about AZ-104. Okay. And if at all, if you are interested in Azure DevOps, right? So for Azure DevOps, the entry path would be you should be having a knowledge of AZ-104 plus AZ-400. So AZ-400, which talks completely about the Azure DevOps. Okay. So one of the prerequisite for Azure DevOps is you should be having a knowledge of AZ-104. Or if you are from developing background and you should be having a knowledge about AZ-204, then also you can learn AZ-400. So with this, you can achieve your Azure DevOps expert. Okay. If at all, if you don't want to go as Azure DevOps and you want to go it as a Azure architect, right? So AZ-104 is one of the prerequisite for architect plus AZ-305 you need to cover. Once you need to learn AZ-305 after completing the 104. Okay. So this is a learning path in your Microsoft Cloud. Any questions, any doubts on this? Okay. If you have
So
any questions,
one quick question is actually
yeah,
from my
please.
side.
Yeah.
So I just want to know about what is the most demand in the market when you are comparing with these two AWS admin and uh, Azure DevOps. So what was the demand in the market at the current moment?
Okay. So here we are talking about two different vendors, right?
Yeah,
Or different service provider. So
yeah.
one is Microsoft and the other one is AWS, Amazon
Mm,
Web Service, right? So when you see the market, both are leading in the market, right? And when you talk about the Microsoft services, right? So wherein you will be using more features like what do you say, the cloud services like compute, network, storage, and there are many other cloud services are available. Apart from this, even you can see the Azure Active Directory, which is one of the core for your identity and access management platform. And also we'll be using the Office 365 services, which are connected to your Azure Active Directory. And still there are many other cloud services which you'll be using it. But still, when you see the market shareholders, right, um, we can say AWS is using more than the Azure, but still the Azure is picking up. So when you see the other cloud services like GCP, IBM, or Alibaba Cloud, right? So Azure and AWS are the leaders in the market, which is providing cloud services. Did I answer your question?
yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So any other questions, any other doubts before we proceed?
Hello, Ravi.
Yeah, please.
I'm a security professional and I just wanted to have a understanding on cloud services. So I wanted to join this class. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to understand if I take this class, will I be able to understand how cloud and all the services in cloud and how cloud works and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Right. So security, when we talk about security, there are multiple pieces in cloud as well, right? So we have Azure Information Protections, and we have other things like there's a separate content which is AZ500, which talks about the Azure security, and even you can learn directly AZ500, right? But still, if you know AZ-104, right? So that will be an advantage. You can learn AZ-500 also. And also when we talk about the Azure security, right? Even the Azure Active Directory is one of the small place where your identity platform and wherein we come across securing or kind of auditing and other services. Yes. So with the AZ-104, right? So wherein you'll be understanding how or what is virtual network in Azure. How do you configure the storage services? How do you configure the compute services? How do you work on the identity? And how do you work on a security part like a network security, like firewalls and other stuff? And also on the governance part, like how do you manage your governance in your Azure cloud, right? So 104 is also one of the prerequisites where you want to go with the AZ-500 or you want to learn anything on a security.
So, in this course, as you said, we will cover this networking part. Will there any be practical that you're going to make us do?
Yes, definitely.
Like deploying something, deploying a VM or else with that particular IP, in that way.
Yeah, see, when we talk about the networking or a compute, no, here we are not talking on core level on the networking. Means what is a network and what is a router, firewall, all those stuff we'll not be talking. But we'll be covering a basic where you can understand. Okay. But the core idea is wherein we'll be understanding like how do you deploy a network in a Microsoft cloud. So once you deploy a network, how do you configure your services like compute or storage inside that, right? So deploying a virtual machine inside your network. And there are many things within we'll be covering on a networking part. And this is a 90% practical oriented session, right? So whatever the services we talk here, we understand the theory part, and also I'll be helping you to create your Azure accounts, and I'll be showing the practicals over there, like how to deploy the services and how do you manage. And that is how wherein even you can practice from your end as well. And also we'll be covering a couple of real-time scenarios as well. I'll be explaining in the next slide. But I would say it's a 80 to 90% practical oriented session. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. No worries. I'll just move on to the next slide. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. All right. So I'll come back to this slide. Okay. As of now, we understood like what are the learning areas or what is the learning path or the career path in Microsoft Cloud. So let's move to the next slide about the prerequisites, right? So now we will have a couple of questions, right? Am I choosing a right profile to learn or which suits to my career domain? Or let's take example, I'm a fresher and I want to start my career. Is this the course content is right? Or let's take example, I'm from a technical from different domain. I want to switch my domain as per the career requirement or demand. Or I'm from a non-technical background. Now I want to switch my career to a technical background. So what is the right starting point? Okay. So AZ-104 is the right starting point. Like if you are a fresher or you have experience working with different domain, different technical or not technical domain to start your career in Azure admin or a cloud admin. Or if you're a fresher also, it's a good start. Means where you'll be learning from a scratch and you can build your career there. So with this one, wherein you should also having some prerequisites, right? Prerequisite in the sense wherein I should have some base knowledge. So what all I needed. So you should have a knowledge about the operating system, managing operating system like Windows and Linux. So it's not a core level wherein you should be an expertise in Microsoft Windows operating system administration or Linux administration. But if you know basics, that's well and good. If you know beyond that, also that's good. I'm not saying that you should know only basic, not learn beyond that. It's not like that, right? So here we will be managing the platform, the entire infrastructure, but not will not be managing on a OS level in the sense the Windows operating system management will be taken care by the Wintel team, and the Linux administration will be taken care by the Linux team. But if you know some basic administration to perform your Azure admin for your day-to-day operations, that's well and good. If you're keen to learn, yes, that's also good. Right. This is one of the base requirement, and you should be having an idea what is virtualization is. Right. The entire cloud services is running on a virtualization platform, so you should be having an idea what is virtualization. Okay. And the cloud infrastructure, this will be learning in this entire training. That's okay. And a basics overview about the storage, like how the data sits on a backend, what is storage, and what is SAN, NAS, DAS, the basic concept you should be knowing it. And of course, about the networking, right? So you should be knowing about the networking, like what is IP addressing, what are the classes of IP, what is subnetting, and what is routing, switching, basics of that. Okay. But in cloud, wherein we'll be learning how to deploy the network in Azure, how do you configure your network, how do you customize or manage your network, that we'll be learning in the training. Okay. So understanding about the on-prem virtualization like VMs, virtual network, virtual hard disk. So this is one of the prerequisites, and in the sense like whatever you host in your on-premises, wherein you'll be coming a scenario with a hybrid scenario or moving from on-prem to cloud, it goes on. Right? So you should have an idea what is virtual machine is, virtual network, virtual hard disk. And also you should be knowing certain protocols like what is TCP/IP, what is DNS, what is virtual private network, firewall, and encryption. So you should be knowing about this concept wherein we will be talking in this entire series. And also you should be knowing about what is backup, restore, why we required, what is disaster recovery, right? So as an overview, you should be knowing it. Okay. So these are the one of the prerequisite wherein you will be knowing when you start this course. So don't worry if you don't know something on this. I've shared some link, so you can refer that and you can update yourself. Okay. Any questions on this slide? All right. So now the question will be what will be the day-to-day activities, or like what will be the profile of a Azure admin or a cloud administrator, or after completing this course, if you have been engaged or you are trying to look for a job, what will be the profile? So basically the Azure admin or a cloud admin, wherein you will be managing the cloud infrastructure services like creating the storage, creating the network, or creating the compute, or any other resources which is related to your infrastructure where you'll be creating, managing, and administration of that. And here you'll be managing the entire IT lifecycle model, right? Like developing solution and deploying the solution, managing, updating or upgrading, and decommissioning. So entire IT lifecycle model where you will be managing in the cloud. So basically, you will be getting a request from a developer or from any application team to deploy the services. Like, let's take example, I want to host an application for which I require a Windows server with some with certain network configuration, with certain storage requirement, and with certain other infrastructure requirements, right? So I put across a requirement over a request, and you will be deploying the services or configuring the service, and you'll be handing over to me. Or if you take example, I want to host one of the application or payroll application for my employees, right? So I'll request for you to deploy a Windows server with 2019 operating system with so and so CPU, so and so RAM, so and so hard disk, and in this particular physical location like US, I want it. So you will be deploying the services and you will be giving the services details to me, but you will not be managing anything inside that, like deploying any application, right? So that will not be done by you. So that will be taken care by the application team, right? So your job will be deploying the services or managing the services. And as and when you require, you'll be monitoring the performance, the utilization, and you do the scaling, like increasing the capacity, decreasing the capacity as and when required. And also you'll be working with other vendors, like let's take example, you host some application like SAP, anyways. But you will be interacting them to configure the services here, but you will not be managing that particular application. Means you will be interacting with different vendors to manage or deploy or to administer your infrastructure in the cloud. So what are the ways you will manage your Azure? So you can manage your Azure with a UI, with the Azure portal through a browser. Also, you can manage through the command line, which using the PowerShell. And nowadays we see a lot of other command line tools which are available where you can connect your Azure infra and you can manage it. As a successful cloud administrator, uh, wherein you'll be managing your services running in the cloud, like virtualization cloud, like virtualization, networking, and the storage you'll be managing in the cloud, right? So this will be your day-to-day activities as a Azure admin. Any questions, any doubts on this? All right, let's move to the next slide. Okay, one more thing here, right? So if you have a question saying that, do I need to know the programming language or do I need to have a coding skill to learn Azure? It's not that. You can manage your Azure infrastructure via graphical user interface, also with the PowerShell utility. And if you learn some coding language like PowerShell or any other third-party command line tool, that will help you, right? So in the beginning stage, wherein we'll be doing with the UI, as and when the day goes on, your experience will count, and you will start looking for some kind of scripting where you can make your work easier, right? So in that case, wherein the coding will help. Okay, that's not a prerequisite, but still, you need to keep it in a parallel where you can learn along with that. Okay, so this we already covered what all we will be deploying or managing. And I don't think so. We have not covered this. Okay, yeah. So these are the things what we'll be learning. So in the next course content slide, I'll tell you what all we will be learning. Okay. Any questions for now? Okay. All right. So our main focus is to cover the AZ-104, the certification content, but we will not be covering only this thing. We will be covering additional things like the basics, which is the fundamentals we'll be covering, and we will be covering this content, which is related to your AZ-104. So you can see here. Yeah. So these are the skills which are measured in terms of AZ-104 certification, right? So managing Azure identities and governance, which is the Entra ID or Azure Active Directory, we'll be learning. And we'll be learning like how do you implement and manage the storage services, compute services, virtual networks, and also there are a couple of resources. How do you monitor and manage? We'll be looking at. Okay. So I'll show the content, but still we'll be covering a bit more than this. Yeah. Okay. This is the content what we follow, but still there are some updates in this. So I'll be covering that. You not to worry. Okay. So first we will start with the introduction, like what is Azure and what is Microsoft Azure and what is the benefit of cloud services and what are the types of cloud services and cloud services model and marketplace and what are the ways you manage the Azure, right? So this will be covering in the module 1, which will help you to understand the basics. And we'll understand what is Azure subscription, how to create the subscription, types of subscription, and how do you manage your access control, and overview of Azure Resource Manager. How do you deploy and manage your Azure resources? We'll be covering in Module 2. And Module 3 will be covering about the virtual machines, like what is Azure Virtual Machine, how do you deploy, what are the prerequisites, and how do you use the ARM templates to deploy the virtual machine. And also we'll be understanding about the costing using the Azure calculator. What is, like, before deploying any services, what will be the charges, right? So that we'll try to understand here. We will be covering the storage part, what is Azure storage, how to create and how do you manage. And we'll be understanding the networking in Azure. So what is Azure Virtual Network, how do you create, and when you create multiple network, how do you connect them, and how do you build the connection between your on-prem to Azure, the VPN connection, or from your individual computer. And also we'll be covering the other services like load balancing solution, how do you deploy the load balancer, and how do you host a simple web application. Means as a demonstration we do a real time where we deploy the web services and we'll see how the load balancing will work. And how do you control the traffic flow between your network using the network security group. We'll be covering this energies. And what are the day-to-day activity with respect to your Azure admin, like managing your virtual machine with the disk and network, or increasing or decreasing the capacity, right? So how do you work with a snapshot? How do you restore it? And how do you create a virtual machine image? How do you deploy the image? Means VM using the your custom images. And also we'll be covering the high availability services, like what is high availability service option available. We'll be seeing that availability sets, availability zone, and scale set as well. So how do you do an um, vertical scaling, right? We'll be understanding that. And we'll be covering the PaaS service, which is the app service. And also we'll be working like, also we'll understand like how do you create your SQL database. This is just to see how you can deploy the PaaS services. Two PaaS services we will be discussing. And also we'll be discussing about the Azure Active Directory overview, how do you deploy and how do you synchronize your on-prem to Azure AD. We'll be seeing that. And also we'll be seeing like what are the recovery option you do, like backup and restore, and how do you monitor and troubleshoot your infrastructure part. So these are the 15 core topics wherein we'll be covering. This is completely a practical oriented. So we will understand the theory part and I'll show you to deploy the services in cloud, and I'll be helping you to create your accounts where you can um, do practice from your end as well. And there are a couple of real-time scenarios wherein we'll be deploying and we'll be seeing that. Okay. So anything apart from this, if you want to add, which is related to Azure admin, you can ask, we can cover it. And when you ask about the duration, this is 30 plus hour content. Yeah. So 30, 35 to 36 hours, the entire duration of this course will be. Yeah. Any questions, any doubts, guys? Yeah. And I would request to share uh, your email address and the phone number in the chat box. You can chat or you can send it to Visualpath admin. Okay. So that the upcoming classes details will be shared along with that. Yeah. Any questions, any doubts, guys? Okay. Unfortunately, my subscription got disabled. Okay. Otherwise, I would have been shown like how we will deploy or manage the services. But quickly, I'll show you that. But I'll not be able to deploy, but I'll show you the Azure portal and how the lab runs, right? So let's take example. Okay, we take the module 3 as example, right? So here we'll be understanding what is Azure Virtual Machine and what are the prerequisite and what are the things we need to consider before you deploy a VM. that we will understand first. Next, I'll be showing by logging into the Azure portal. This is one of my disabled account, but still, I'll just show it up. Unfortunately, it's not working. Okay, that's okay. So we log into the Azure portal and I'll show you the step by step, like how do you deploy the virtual machine. So with that, you'll understand how you can deploy the services. So likewise, this is wherein we'll be covering the core services like compute, network, storage. And when we come to the load balancing solution, in that case, we'll be covering the overall, like it's a kind of small project where we'll be deploying the compute network, and then we'll be deploying a simple application inside that. Then we will be configuring this machine under the load balancing solution, and we will see the functionality of a load balancer, right? So that's how the training runs. And with your account, yes, after the training session, you can do your practice from your end. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I would repeat again. So please drop your email ID and phone number in the chat box to the Visualpath admin so that the recording session and the materials and the upcoming class details will be shared with your contact details. All right. Any other questions, any other doubts for now?
No, no.
Okay. All right then. So today we just wind up here. If at all, if you have any doubt, any question, you can reach our coordinator. So I'll correspond to that. Okay. And about the upcoming classes, so our coordinator will be sharing you the details shortly. So accordingly, we will take that. All right. Any questions before we wind up? Let me know. Otherwise, if you're good, then we can close it.
No questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. So we'll catch up soon.
Have a great day too.
Sure. Thank you.